Hey, happy Wednesday, everyone. We are coming to you a day late for a few reasons. One, it was the day after Labor Day, and we wanted to give everyone a bit of time to get acclimated back to the work week. Two, we planned to release a mini episode yesterday, but transparently, we had some AV issues and we will not be publishing it for the time being. Three, this one was a little bit less expected. Your host unfortunately got a not so fun case of the norovirus this weekend, but we are back and better than ever. Anyways, on to Pathfinder 0015. Today's guest is Kelly Larson, the CEO of Aquarian Space. Aquarian is building internet for the solar system, and the Boulder startup announced in March that it had raised $650,000 in seed funding to begin building that solar system. The round was led by Draper Associates, which is especially notable because Draper was an early investor in SpaceX. I'm excited to dive into Aquarian and my conversation with Kelly. We touch on deep space communications, going to the moon, building logistics and infrastructure systems for the cislunar economy, using Netflix in space, yoga, and a whole lot more. But before we do dive in, you know the drill. Let's hear a word from our sponsor. Our reliance on satellites for navigation, communications, commerce, and intelligence has grown exponentially in the new space economy. Unfortunately, the risks have grown as well, and the need for cybersecurity around space assets is critical. Spider Oak Mission Systems provides space cybersecurity products for military, commercial, and civilian operators. Their Orbit Secure solution is the first to deliver zero trust security to zero gravity environments, protecting space communication, command, control, data transmission, storage, and integrity at the data level. To learn more about Orbit Secure, check out their website at spideroak-ms.com. Kelly, welcome to Pathfinder.
Thank you, Ryan. It's a pleasure to be here.
So we were just talking before I hit record, and we briefly met at Satellite in Washington back in March, I think, but we didn't get to talk shop. So I'm excited that we are finally able to do so.
Likewise.
So I want to start, we'll get into Aquarian, obviously, but I want to start just high level, your background. How'd you get into space?
I mean, there's so many angles to that, right? So many answers to that. The reality is that I first got into it through just a love of space, right? Like growing up, I think I mentioned to you that I grew up on a farm. So I grew up looking at the sky and just completely in love with it. So there's a way that I always had this love of space. I was working in a doctoral program, studying cosmology and just geeking out on space and cosmology and how do we think things happened. So I had this love of it. But really the way I got into it was I met someone through one of my other businesses, teaching yoga. And she's my co-founder, Becky Strauss. And then she introduced me to her good friend, Michael Hackman. And he said, hey, you've built businesses before. I have an idea for a business. I want to talk to you. And we ended up just really hitting it off and enjoying each other's company. And so then he invited Becky and me to come in with him, and we're the three co-founders. So I really got into it through, some sort of synchronicity on the yoga side. And then it led to a really great journey.
How do you think the lack of light pollution growing up on a farm, how did that affect visibility? This is tangential to the conversation, but I'm wondering if more kids growing up in rural areas where there's any light pollution, they could see all the stars.
Oh my gosh.
If that inspires them anymore.
I mean, I think so.
It's a fundamentally unknowable thing.
Seriously, it's one of my great treasures of my life is when I'm in really dark areas. And my farm was definitely good for viewing stars growing up. But I have moments, you know how you have those moments of beauty that just etch in your body and your memory? I have moments of being on a dark coast by the ocean, out in the desert in Utah, where there were no lights and just the stars were so much more clear. And it is, I think it does when you see that, when you really get out into the deep dark and you see that. I actually have this dream to spend some real time out on the ocean on a dark boat for this reason, because I just want to get lost in that view. And I think you can't help but get caught in the wonder and the awe. I mean, it just,
yeah,
what gets invoked there.
Yeah, that That's a pretty profound answer, and I'm actually going to probably ruin the moment here. But what animals did you have on the farm growing up?
So we were more, so it was in Iowa, and we grew mostly corn and soybeans. So it was a lot more about the plants. But we did have, I think we had chickens 1 year, and my dad wasn't too into that. We did have pigs occasionally, cattle occasionally, but small numbers. Yeah, and
Okay.
then of course farm pets, which included sometimes the stray baby raccoon that suddenly showed up that we would,
Yeah.
nurse for a while.
Yeah. Well, there's some common ground. I mean, I didn't grow up on a farm, but in Dallas, we did have chickens for a large part of my middle school and high school. And we also had a
Huh.
pet, a Shiba Inu, which most people know now because of all the memes and cryptocurrencies. But the Shiba Inu unfortunately didn't get along with our chickens, and
Oh,
we just recently lost our last chicken. But yeah, it was an interesting experience growing up with chickens. We didn't have any roosters though, and those are the meddlesome loud ones.
exactly. Wow, in the city you have
So,
them? Oh,
because
so
well, so
great.
yeah, yeah, and the fresh eggs were the best part. The uh
Yeah,
the, the zoning laws are basically just no roosters unless your grandfather did. But we had no desire to have roosters and hens, so it worked
yeah,
out.
great.
Self-described farm girl, grown into a yoga. Can you walk us through what that means?
Farm girl turned yoga entrepreneur turned space CEO. I think that's the
Yes,
line
yes.
on my LinkedIn.
I think I clipped it. I clipped it short, but yes, that's the full line.
Yeah, no. I mean, I grew up on a farm, and there's something really simple and beautiful about life there, right? You learn how to work. You learn to appreciate nature and kind of the natural ways of life. And I grew up with a lot of wonder, and curiosity, and a lot of transformation, a lot of passion around helping people, because of my own struggles that I went through. So then I got into yoga, really out of a desire to understand how to support people to grow and change. So my master's degree and my doctoral studies were all in how do humans and cultures transform and change, and then likewise organizations, how do they change? So then when I had this opportunity to come into Aquarian with Michael and Becky, it has been, first of all, it was just like, of course, I love space. This is going to be so fun. But really, I took those years of experience. Michael, let me back up and say Michael's vision was he wanted someone from outside the space industry to help him on the business side of things because he's such a cool visionary. And I've always believed that people coming from very diverse backgrounds, different backgrounds, make things more interesting and sometimes more successful. So we wanted the uniqueness of my yoga background in the space company, and I think it's worked really, really well for us. So then, for me, the common thread is um, how does life transform? How do humans transform? And I think space is transforming humans in a really powerful way. And humanity and the future experience of humanity is changing really fast.
Yeah, that's actually fascinating, and I'm inclined to agree. I come from a non-space background, and I spoke last week at the New Space conference about this, about kind of bringing more people into the fold. So we're kindred spirits in that regard. Let's turn our focus to Aquarian, and let's actually just start really high level. What inspired the name Aquarian?
Oh, well, that was Michael, co-founder. So Aquarian is, we're going to go a little woo here. So
Love it.
in astrology, there is a sign called Aquarius. It's the water bearer, but Aquarius is about, actually, it's about large scale communication. And Michael's an Aquarius, and but there's also this whole, you've maybe heard the saying, the age of Aquarius. It's about a new age of humanity where a lot of things kind of change and evolve. And it is about these broad communications and changing humanity in a big and far reaching way. So Michael, Michael wanted to bring that into the name, and we were on board with that. And most people don't know. Actually, no one's ever asked. Certainly on a public platform like this, so people don't really know what it means. people get confused. Sometimes they often spell it wrong, and sometimes they think it's aquarium, which is very exciting. to
Yeah.
that. But it's I kind of I love it actually.
Well, I believe I'm an Aquarius. My birthday's on February 15th, so that
Yes,
should make me one, right? Yeah.
yes,
Yeah, awesome. Well
absolutely.
then I'm a big fan of the name. It's my favorite
Oh,
space
great.
company name. Yeah.
Great.
Now to move on to a little bit more about the actual company.
Mhm.
When did you decide to join? You know, and what problem is Aquarian setting out to solve?
So I told you way back, I was actually teaching yoga, and this woman was like, hey, kept, she was very persistent about connecting with me. And that is Becky. She is persistent. She's amazing. Uh, so I met Michael and Becky years ago. Actually, really a little on the early side. Usually startup companies want to hit a market right at perfect timing. Well, we hit it early, and we managed to survive, and we managed to go through a huge amount of the growing pains that startups go through before we were quite as relevant as we needed to be on the business side. So it actually set us up really well. So when we did our reboot in 2020, it was perfect. But going back, how did I get into it? I also personally in my life, because I'm passionate about transformation and I have a lot of trust in life. When the opportunity came up and I liked these people and I love space, I said, let's do it. Sure. Michael invited me and I said yes. It was really about the having, I guess, the I don't know if it's courage or a little crazy to say yes to it. And then it was a whole lot of figuring things out because my previous companies were bootstrapped. So to figure out how to, raise money and build a space company and figure out how to get space customers and deal with all of it. Oh my gosh, it's been a great journey.
Yeah, yeah. So no, the second part of that was what problem are you setting out to solve?
Great. So, years ago, Michael was working with a team. He had helped to oversee the building of a satellite, and then the people that were running the satellite, they it was out. I'm going to mess up this story, but I think it was out by Jupiter. It was somewhere far out, one of those outer planets,
Yeah, yeah.
and they did like a 2-degree turn, and they waited 2 weeks to get the data back to find out if the turn that they made worked. And,
Hmm.
another example is New Horizons, went out to Pluto, got data for 7 minutes. They got the bulk of their data in 7 minutes. And then do you know how long it took to get it back?
An hour, 7 hours? Those are widely different guesses.
It took 6 months to get that 7 minutes of
Oh,
data back.
wow. Oh,
So
wow. Okay.
Michael noticed early on that deep space data was a challenge, that these people would actually drive to NASA centers to get the data faster, because then once it got down to these big dishes, then they would have to wait for the data to get back to them through a whole other process, this like shared trunk line. And he just said, wow, this is a problem. And they were only getting back about a third of the data they're collecting. But the whole reason they're going out there is to collect the data. So he
Yeah.
said, wow, what can we do to help this? And then started noticing what's coming at the moon. So Michael just kind of caught it early and saw that. So the problem we're solving is lunar and deep space communications. We're really, in order to
Hmm.
go to the moon or to go to Mars or to go to Jupiter or anywhere, you need to have uh, communications to be able to steer your spacecraft, to be able to get the data that you're going to collect, all these things. So we're doing that.
Do you watch For All Mankind by any chance?
It is on my short list. I haven't started it
Okay.
actually. I'm going to soon.
Okay. Yeah. Well, just to make things accessible there, and this is not really a spoiler alert of any kind,
Okay.
but there's I forget exactly what the number is, but like 8 hour delay in getting data, you know,
Mhm.
getting data from Mars. So the crew that goes there, if they face a challenge, that's all I'll say. But there's that delay, and that obviously exists in the real world too. So on that deep space mission, what are the chief culprits for the latency delay beyond just simple physics? Was it the case that the mission was using like a government run network, and thus was like lower on the pecking order of precedence and whatnot?
Wow, there's many ways to this. So first of all, I want to say the primary provider for moon and deep space data right now is called the Deep Space Network, and it's NASA's Deep Space Network. It was put in place really for the Apollo missions. Um, it has done a great job. It's these super powerful antennas on the Earth, and then spacecraft mostly send their data directly down to those antennas. Now they are just very busy. They are in very high demand. So definitely there are some political who gets in where. It's around, last I checked, it's probably been a couple of years, it was 70% contested on the DSN. That means 70% of the time, multiple customers were trying to um, get access at the same time. So part of it is, part of it is just the speed of light and the speed of sound, right? Which were the same. And we are dealing with that, whether we're dealing with optical or RF. So that's part of it. Part of it is dealing with getting access. And then part of it is that we haven't been using much for relays. And that's what Aquarian's doing. I guess I wasn't clear about that earlier. We like to say sometimes that we're stringing relay satellites through the solar system, like cell phone towers, right? So instead of me trying to get on my phone and reach a cell phone tower in Africa that's super huge, but really far away, there's one, closer to me in the US that I can go through, right? So that helps a lot. And then in our relays, then we can optimize it. Because the problem is, okay, let's say we've got this spacecraft by Jupiter. It wants to have good comms, but it also needs to do all the other things it wants to do. It wants to collect all this other data and stuff. So it's not only focused on comms. So then we come and we get closer to them, but we're still in good view of the Earth. And we're optimized. We're just out there really to do comms, communication. So that means we can put our money, our energy, our everything toward that. So we make it very efficient, and it makes it better for our customers. Does that answer your
Great.
questions?
Yeah, totally. So I didn't anticipate this having such a pop culture bent, but the Deep Space Network, those massive antennas on Earth, are those the antennas that you see in movies, like in the alien movies, like out in the desert somewhere, I think?
They could be. The biggest ones are mostly owned by NASA. It's DSN. There are other ground providers, and we'll be working with commercial ground providers because the DSN is unless NASA wants us to, send something to them, we can. But largely, those are so full that it makes more sense that we just, do things really efficiently through commercial ground providers. But yeah, it's those like big antennas that you've seen. And they're great, but they're also obscenely expensive to build, and it's hard to find places in the right part of Earth to build new ones. They require a lot of space, $500 million. They're a lot to run. They're not, there are more efficient ways to do things now with today's technology, 60 years later.
Yeah, well, so you actually read my mind. We've already established that there is a shortage of capacity, but the other element here is that this is aging infrastructure, right?
Yeah, it is.
So what is the go-to-market or like initial launch strategy look like in deploying this network? If I understand, it's like the moon first, right?
Yeah. We're starting at the moon first. You'll see a lot of our website and a lot of our press talks about the moon. So it's the moon, then Mars, and beyond is what we say. So, the DSN, you mentioned, I should say a little more about the aging network piece with the DSN. It's still a very good network. It's going to work for a while, but it makes a lot more sense to use those massive dishes for farther out in the solar system. And then DSN said they will stop serving the moon in 2023. So here we go. And the moon, by the way, asking about the problem we're solving, last year in 2021, the moon had 13 rovers, landers, and orbiters on and around the moon from everywhere around Earth. 13. And by the end of the decade, we're looking at almost 200. So that is, it's a moment. People don't understand actually what's happening in the lunar economy. People that aren't tracking it is incredible. There are dozens of public and private finance programs from US to Japan and many places in between that are financing exactly this, to go back to the moon, this time to stay, and then Mars.
It's an exciting time, that's for sure. And I think I forget who at NASA, but someone senior at NASA who is responsible for a lot of this for CLIPS, just described it as like a taking lots of shots on goal in terms of how they are funding the next generation of commercial rovers and landers and whatnot. How, how does Clips tie in? How does Clips tie into your roadmap and strategy?
Great. So that was the question that I lost for a second. So first of all, to say we're launching in 24 and then 25 because that's really when Clips and Artemis start picking up. So for anyone who doesn't know, Clips is Commercial Lunar Payload Services. That's NASA's program that is brilliant. Jim Bridenstine really brought this in and his team. Such a cool way that NASA is embracing the capacity of smaller commercial companies and big
Hmm.
commercial companies to just really be smart about this. Um, so really the missions pick up and need us around 24, 25. That's when the relays are really start to be required, especially 25 is when the kind of big heavy things go in. So we have designed our first two satellites to be able to really optimize and work with the like smaller, um, smaller data signals,
Hmm.
smaller reach, smaller batch satellites, but there are still important missions that are going to be on the surface of the moon in, say, 24, 25. And then soon after that, there are these kind of big missions coming. There are these cool commercial companies with big and NASA programs with big landers, like landers that astronauts can ride in. Excuse me, rovers is what I was actually trying to say. Rovers that astronauts can ride in. Big landers that want to send huge amounts of data steady to the Earth. So we're designing our satellites to be able to meet both of those initially, and then our later satellites are really going to be optimized for those huge data needs that are coming very quickly later this decade.
I want to get into the bigger, more ambitious missions and Wi-Fi on
Yeah.
the moon and a whole host of other topics. But first, we are going to take a quick break. Time for a short break to hear about our sponsors again. Space is the new frontier for cybersecurity. Spider Oak Mission Systems builds space cybersecurity solutions for civilian, military, and commercial space operations. Their Orbit Secure protocol delivers zero trust security to zero gravity environments, protecting space communication, command, control, data transmission, storage, and integrity at the data level. To learn more about how zero trust architectures will revolutionize security in new space, download the new NSR Spider Oak sponsored white paper titled Space Cybersecurity, Current State and Future Needs. You can find that white paper at spacecyber.com. Again, that is spacecyber.com. We love nice and easy to remember URLs. For more info, check out their website at spideroak-ms.com and tell them Pathfinder sent you. All right, we are back. So, in line with the Clips discussion, I think that, looking at a lot of these missions, there's a increased focus on the far side of the moon. And there are a lot of reasons why that is more ambitious and harder and just, there's more complexity. So how does your solution, how are you thinking about near side and far side? Because I know that you'll be servicing the latter, and that's where NASA
Yeah.
just released like their candidate sites for Artemis 2, I believe, and it's all far side dark. So turn it over to you.
I would say that's probably more complex for the people that are going to land things on the moon. For us,
Fair
we
enough.
have designed our orbit so that we can get that. So um, it's actually great for us to just so we're optimizing for quite a bit of the visible south side of the moon,
Hmm.
and that we're going to have regular access and regular view of the backside of the moon. So it's very easy for us to pick up those relay signals back there and send them down.
Walk our audience through what
Mhm.
the constellation like around the moon will look like in practice.
Yeah.
How high it will be orbiting, where the
Mhm.
coverage will be, that sort of thing. And then we'll get into use cases, of course.
Well, there are certain things that we're not sharing
Yeah.
publicly, so I'm going to speak vaguely.
Okay,
But
that's fine.
our constellation part of our strategy has been how can we do this in a way that we radically reduce the risk here. We're not getting up there to test out something new right now. Our customers need reliable service. So we have extremely experienced team putting together stuff that's all space qualified, all stuff that we know works in the lunar environment. And we are optimizing it for, let's see, how do I want to say this? I'll say that we're doing, like I kind of said it earlier, right? Initially, there are these smaller missions. They're shorter in life. They're using S-band frequencies, and they're great. So we had a different plan, and we decided to even shift it a little bit so that we could maximize really serving our S-band customers in 24, 25, but also pick up those big KA band
Yeah,
customers.
the art of the
Yeah,
pivot.
and so we can do
Right.
both, and our satellites will last quite a while. So, and then so our entire constellation with our first satellite in 24, we can meet our customers' needs. They're going to get a tremendous amount of hours a day, and then with 2 satellites up, we'll have 24/7 coverage of everything our customers want.
Okay. I'm happy.
So 2 satellites, and then from there we
Yeah,
just scale.
I'm happy with that answer, and I won't poke on any more of the specifics. I don't want to get you in trouble.
Okay.
So the term Wi-Fi on the moon, what does that
Yeah.
mean in practice? Like, walk us through like the applications that this, connectivity, internet on the lunar surface. Like, what sort
Mhm.
of applications you'll be enabling?
Well, there's different things, right? There's, we're probably going to be partnering. We've got a couple different partners that are looking at actually providing the connectivity on the lunar surface, right? So, like, rover to lander connected, right? That's a different thing. What we're really doing is connecting the moon and the earth, and the earth and the moon, right? And then the moon and Mars, and earth and Mars. So we're really more between it. And we say Wi-Fi for the moon or Wi-Fi for the solar system because it's kind of an easy thing to get, but we're probably more like an internet service provider. So we're like
Yeah,
the,
yeah.
Comcast or
Yeah, so like the last mile on the moon, I don't know what that looks like in practice, like the modems and everything. That's not really your focus.
well, anybody on the moon that wants to send data off the moon down to Earth, we can be your person. We can be your provider. But if they're trying to send it to another thing on the moon, they could go through us. They could, for sure. But I would say it's more like, yeah, you want to, let's say, let's fast forward several years and say there's an astronaut on the moon that wants to do a video call with the family down below. Um, you can deal with a few seconds delay, but you could do a live, you can do 4K video streaming with our initial 2 satellites. That's before things get really heavy duty and
Yeah.
robust. So,
Well, you actually read my mind. Look, there's an astronaut right here behind me. I wanted to ask about, with human presence on the moon, the permanent infrastructure, and just like crewed missions. Is it too premature to think about like what sort of applications astronauts or moon residents will be using? Like, I could see why, video calling, why that would be important to talk to your family back home, but I imagine like astronauts somewhere, it's not going to be like Netflix and chill. Like, it's mostly going to be mission critical applications. Like, are y'all thinking through that, or too early?
well, a little bit. We were thinking about some of that. I mean, initially, yeah, it's not. I mean, initially it's really about the robots and not the humans because they're not.
The
Humans
robots, yeah.
are going to come a little bit after
Yeah.
the robots. But then the humans will be up there, and it'll initially probably be largely mission critical. But we are definitely designing and building an infrastructure with massive partners to prepare for there to be whatever Wi-Fi and data needs we want to meet on the moon will be. Sure, you want to Netflix and chill while you're on the moon? We are definitely preparing to be able to meet that
Mhm.
by the end of this, as soon as people are up there to
Yeah.
take advantage
Yeah.
of it. Yeah.
Building internet for the solar system, super ambitious. What was it like raising that first round? You mentioned you first got started, and it's a common line with startups, like timing is everything. And so you rebooted, and
Yeah.
clearly it's working out. You're in sort of you're in like building mode, I suppose. But what was that like? Take us back to the process of going boardroom to boardroom, or maybe just you were able to raise quickly. I don't know.
No.
Okay. I
It
figured
would be
I
so
figured
fun.
that.
No, no. Those first years that I told you we started a little too early, I also got to, eat some humble pie as I learned how to
Yeah.
fundraise and learned how to pitch and learned how to, redid the deck 100, 200
Wow.
times, went through different pitch training practices. Um, I think there are a certain number of skills that you need to be able to raise money. But it's largely just, I think it's largely an inside game.
Yeah.
It's like, it's really something about, understanding yourself as a leader. I mean, I would say that there are certain things, confidence, maybe even arrogance can help in a raise. And there are certain demographics that are real out there as a
Yeah.
woman.
Yeah.
Women there are good studies that show that women get listened to with a more critical ear. Women get way less the money than men
Hmm.
do.
Totally.
And um, I am kind of a geek for transformation. I like growing. I like growing as a leader and as a human. So it was hard. And, we really hit our breakthrough moment last year. We brought in this extraordinary partner, and they're called Green Inc. Um, which is a cool thing. That's a whole other topic, but they have this, 600 top aerospace engineers, and they came in as our first strategic partners
Oh.
and major investors. And so we brought that in. All of a sudden, we're a startup with access to, 600 top engineers, which is kind of fun and interesting. And then we went into Seraphim's Space
Hmm.
Camp, and then from there, all the momentum picked up, and then all of a sudden, we had all these angels saying yes, and then we had Tim Draper and Draper Associates said they wanted to, lead our small seed round, and it was not fast. It was not easy. It's a humbling process, and it also was just
Yeah.
incredible. One of the most powerful, empowering things I've done, and it's not for the faint
Oh,
of
I
heart.
I can imagine. And it was, a new
Yeah,
experience for you having, as you mentioned toward the top of the
yeah,
show, having been a bootstrapped founder. It's a whole
yeah.
different ball game.
Completely different.
So how do you feel about this is probably one of the easier questions I'm going to be asking, but how does it feel to have Draper in your corner and on your cap table? That's significant, and they were an early SpaceX investor.
It feels great. He's just Tim is a really just fun guy. I went to his founders event this spring, and we all got to hang out in person because I didn't go boardroom to boardroom to pitch, right? I went screen to
Screen
screen.
to screen, true,
So,
true.
uh, for my fundraiser for this race. Um, and so we got to hang out in person, and he's just really a fun character, an interesting person to work with, and his team has been amazing. They're so supportive. And it's nice because they have such a reputation. He has such a reputation of seeing the really good early leaders. He has such a good reputation for having an eye for successful
Hmm.
companies that it's
Yeah.
great. Obviously, it's a nice gold star
Hmm.
for us as a company, and we love working with him.
Yeah, and having gone through Seraphim's accelerator, it's an accelerator. I always get the it's
Yeah,
obviously not an incubator, but the space camp. Would
yeah,
you recommend? Well, first
yeah.
off, what was that experience like, and then would you recommend those types of programs to other space founders?
So space camp. One thing I don't always talk about, but you learn as a leader, you learn, I would say a lot of times, we all do this, right? We're all leading our lives. We're all leaders in some way or another, but something, for me, leading a team, I listen to my gut a lot. And uh, I had a gut sense that I should do space camp when somebody on Seraphim's team suggested that we apply for it. And and I didn't know why, because I felt like I knew a lot about the pitching, and they're in the UK, and like, I probably, maybe we should do something more local, but I had this intuition to do it. And then I got on the call, and they said, look, we're really in this with you. If you want to do it, we're gonna really dig in, and we're gonna really work to accelerate you as a company and introduce you to a lot of people. And they over delivered. It was one of the most powerful experiences. It was also nice because they sent out this press release saying that our mission 8, had represented the top 5% of all seed stage space tech startups
That is a tongue twister. That's a
globally.
tongue twister.
It is a tongue twister, and it was a huge, again, like gold star for us and huge endorsement for us. So that was wonderful. But the accelerator itself, the amount of attention we got from the investing team, from high quality mentors, I was blown away. So I had an incredibly positive experience. I still am having incredibly positive experiences working with Seraphim. I love it. And would I advise this for I've referred several founders to Space Camp specifically.
Mhm.
I think there are a number of good accelerators out there, and there are some really good space accelerators out there. Some are in different places, some in the US, some not. Seraphim is doing their first US
Mhm.
Space Camp this
Mhm.
year. I definitely recommend doing it and actually really showing up, not just trying to skate by. Like as CEO, I actually booked a lot of hours to actually be there and sit in and learn. And I learned so much more than I would have thought. And it was definitely worth the time. And I would say it takes a lot of time. So maybe talk to some people that have gone through an accelerator you're thinking of and make sure that
The right fit.
it's worth the
Mhm.
investment.
I want to
Yeah.
ask you a couple
Mhm.
questions that you probably heard on the Zoom calls, raising, and then probably at Space Camp. What percentage of what percentage of Aquarian's technical roadmap is de-risked, and in terms of like the total capital that you need, total capex for building, let's say those first two satellites, like what percentage of the way are you there? And do you plan to raise again? And if so, when? You might not be able to answer all those questions.
Okay. Well, there are some legalities around not publicly announcing how much you're raising. And so
Plead the
just
fifth.
to kind of say that. So we are raising, we need 50 million to do what we're going to do. And um, we will be opening an A, um, working toward
Okay,
that um, sooner than later. We'll say sooner than later.
I'll take it.
So definitely having conversations about that. Our what percentage is de-risked? Oh my God, I have the most. We have the most brilliant technical team and really highly experienced. I love them, and we're I think as de-risked as you can be.
Where does
Yeah.
that technical team hail from? Like, are there any sort of
So
common backgrounds?
oh, backgrounds, right? Hail from LA. Oh, Johnson in LA. They're in LA and
Yeah, like
Austin mostly,
work
but
experience
actually we're
and
distributed.
education.
John is our CTO, and then also one of our board members from the Koreans. Both of them, two of them, were program managers on TDRS at Boeing.
Okay.
So they were both. So TDRS, if anyone that doesn't know, is essentially the communications uh, data relay satellites that are around the Earth. So very similar to what we're doing in the solar system. So we've got two of those right there in our core leadership. Quite a bit of Boeing and Hughes background. Yeah, very experienced team that's excited to be in the startup version now.
Yeah. One more question.
Oh, and then Michael spent. Oh, I'll say Michael quickly spent a quarter century at Ball.
One more question
He,
on sort of the near-term roadmap. Do you anticipate like government contracts playing a role at all in helping to defray,
yeah,
the build out costs?
yeah. I mean, you kind of got to take all the
Yeah. Yeah.
angles. So certainly we're doing our raises. We're having conversations around our Series A. Um, we're talking to customers and talking about alternative arrangements there. We're having strategic conversations. There's all these things. We're also doing alternative, non-dilutive funding. We've got some of those already like in the books that we're planning on here in the next few months. And then on top of that, so you kind of got to I think it makes sense to just kind of do it all at once. So NASA, this is interesting because I don't know if you know this. NASA has an RFP coming out that's exactly in our sweet spot. That's really exciting. They're really putting attention toward. So I don't know if you know, it's NSN, Near Space
Hmm.
Network. RFP is coming out soon. The draft is out now. We're working on it. Okay, yeah.
Vaguely.
So,
I don't know about it as much as you do.
well, yeah, right. We're all
Yeah.
the way in that right now, and it's really exciting. Actually, it's um, because NASA's actually putting some money toward this, and it's going to be a little different than how Clips is doing it. They're definitely having some different guidelines. They say they want these kind of smaller companies to get in, but then you need to show previous track records. But it's in a very exciting place for us to put some energy. We're, in conversations with and working with a number of very exciting partners to go in and do that. And so we're essentially, plan for the worst, hope for the best. I mean, if the worst is that we have great VCs we're working with, but it dilutes us more,
Yeah.
wonderful. And if the best is that we actually, between NASA and DoD potential scenarios and, SIBRs, we can get some of that in at the same time and get and help that to relax some of our VC needs.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So we're really doing all of it.
Myself and my colleague Mo just recently wrote like a new
Yeah.
space primer for like a business savvy, but non in-group space in-group audience. And we wrote about, one of the unique aspects of building a space startup is the availability of non-dilutive financing. I think another one of the interesting aspects of being a space startup is typically you need to be co-located because most of these companies involve hardware. Now, for Aquarian, it might be a little bit of a different story because you are based in Boulder. I think as we were talking about before we started recording, you just moved to Minnesota. Congratulations on moving. I know how much of a pain that is.
Thank you.
How would you, I guess one foot in the geographical co-location in that part of the discussion, how would you describe the Colorado commercial space ecosystem? I've been like thinking about regional clusters a lot more. And the second part is on the other end of the spectrum. What is it like being a
Yeah.
semi-distributed, definitely more distributed than average space startup?
One thing I'll say is that our business strategy in a number of ways has allowed us to do that. So we were distributed before it was cool.
Yeah, there
And
you
we've
go.
continued with that. So, we're not building our own equipment. We're definitely going with the philosophy that we are partnering with partners that we think are the best at what they do and that we know are going to deliver something powerful. So that allows us to be distributed because we don't necessarily need that. But we also do come together regularly because we need it. And we love the Colorado ecosystem. Uh, there's such a great group of startups in the space industry in Colorado. And then obviously there are some good legacy, a number of
Yeah.
great legacy companies there. And it's just great. The state of Colorado is very supportive. I when I decided that for personal reasons, it made more sense because I have a toddler and
Mhm.
family in the Midwest. I decided to make this move for myself because it helps me to be more supported while I'm doing my job. And it was really important to me that we keep an office in Boulder because the ecosystem is thriving and because it's a pretty friendly ecosystem. I mean, of course, there's, you know, good discernment also,
Mhm.
but it's pretty friendly. There are a lot of good resources, a lot of good partnership opportunities. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a fun place to
I'm
be, fun place to have a
I'm
startup.
sure it also helps on the recruiting side being distributed.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that actually makes it really easy than just the best person wherever they are.
You mentioned Austin. I mean, I always I'm going to ask like a selfish question, like because I live in
Yeah,
Austin, so like have
yeah.
what percent of the company is in Austin, or do you have? Is it just a few employees here and there?
So I mentioned the cream. So we have this really interesting partnership that I think this model could be replicated. It's really powerful that these guys came in as early strategic investors of us, but they act like co-founders essentially. So James and Jennifer Crean are the owners of Crean Inc. And they are both on our board and they're very active. Like I said, they act more like co-founders. And they are just amazing allies, and they're in Austin. And so then some of the technical team people they've hired are down there as well. We also have our board observer from the Draper Group is also in Austin. So we have some.
Yeah.
a good chunk of the people I regularly talk to and meet with and get support from are in Austin. So we are also planning some of our upcoming team together
Yeah.
times, team on
Yeah.
sites in Austin as
Awesome.
well.
Awesome. Well, I would say
Yeah.
wait a few months. It's unbearably hot right now, but shout.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I literally said. How about
Yeah.
January in
Yeah.
Austin? So I think
That'll
that's what
be,
we're aiming
that'll be
for.
much nicer. We're bumping up on time here,
Yeah.
so I want to get to the kind of close of show, palate cleanser type, more fun question.
Yeah.
And the first one is going to
Okay.
be pretty familiar for longtime listeners because I ask this most episodes. What is your hottest take or most contrarian view on the future of the space economy?
My attention is on the moon, and I really believe I'm a believer. It's funny because people either are or aren't. I am a believer in what's coming at the moon, that it is not just a few missions. It's going to take a while. I think that by 2030, we're going to be looking at a massive, robust economy on the moon and very quickly on
Yeah.
Mars. And I think a lot of our attention is going to go out there, and it's going to change everything, from politics and laws and, international relations to how we see science and how we see ourselves as humans to how we treat Earth.
Yeah.
I think it's all going to be radically impacted by
Yeah.
that. But my attention is on the moon is about to get unbelievably hot
Yeah.
fast.
I mean, we're talking literally on the day Artemis 1 was supposed to launch today. They obviously stood down, but
I
maybe
know.
maybe they will have launched by the time this airs. But I think
Yeah, they're close.
just to double click on that comment, NASA very recently said, and they've said this before, but like the moon is not just a stepping stone. It's like a destination in and of itself. I think that jives pretty well with what you're saying. This is the
Mhm.
first time I'm asking this question. So, who are space role models or a space role model for you? It's
You
it's
know,
the first time I'm asking it. So,
I love it. I love it. Gosh, there's so many directions I could go on this. I really appreciate the people that are stepping out and trying to do something different and just going for it. The thing about space is it's a little bit like, it is the next frontier, but the people that are doing this are largely people that are just like, I'm going to go create something, and that's true for every entrepreneur. And to do it in space, I think it's a big bold step. So, I want to say I really appreciate, Megan Crawford going into uh, taking the journey she's taken and the amount she's doing and bringing to the space industry and the way she brings her voice. I think is she's a really good example. I really appreciate actually just some of the other CEOs of these smaller companies that are growing
Mhm.
fast and the way they bring themselves. I would say, um, oh, Sassy Duggleby, the way they are doing culture. Are you familiar with her, Venus Aerospace? She's in
Familiar with the name.
Texas,
Familiar with the name.
Houston.
Not as
Okay.
familiar as I should be.
Okay. So Sassy, the way she is, the way they are doing culture in their company, I would say we're doing culture pretty well. The way they are doing culture at Venus Aerospace is so inspiring. And then her and Laura Crabtree created a group of women. Do you know
Laura's
them?
coming up on the pod in a couple of weeks. So,
She is amazing. And the way these two women come together to support other women that are, including there's a bunch of really incredible
yeah.
women in this group that all inspire me because of how much they are supporting each other, how much we support each other. It's just incredible to be a part of that. So I would say those women inspire me. I could probably keep talking, but it's nice that all three examples I gave so far.
Yeah. No,
Um,
I mean,
yeah, I think these people that are just forging new ground are really inspiring to me.
I love that answer because Lord knows the space industry needs more badass female leaders. So that's a great answer.
Yeah,
Second to last question:
thank you.
Will you go to space? If so, when? And would you go to Mars? That's like three mini questions in one.
Oh yeah, funny. Part of me is just like, well, we'll see. I live my life according to what feels. I really listen for what's right in the time. Um, that said, yeah, I'm sure I'll
Yeah.
go. Well, obviously, I'm sure I'll go to lower space, like Earth
Hmm.
space. Seems pretty no brainer. Moon, I want to go to the
Yeah.
moon. I don't want to live up there. I don't need to spend a long time up there. I want to go to the moon. Do I want to go to Mars? I doubt it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, it seems like well, one thing, I just really like Earth. I
I
really
too.
like breathing this air and having my feet in the grass. So it's a long time to be on a spaceship. And I'm feeling by the time they have spaceships with like real gardens growing on them and like kind of
Greenhouses.
luxury cruise liners is probably maybe past my time. Um, so I doubt I'm going to go to Mars, but I'm a huge fan of the people that want to go, and I'm so curious about their experience and how to support
Yeah.
them. So probably moon visits for sure. And I also want to let some things get worked out. There's a lot on human health that brilliant people are working on right now,
Totally.
and that I'd like to get fleshed out a little bit more before I go too far out there.
Totally. Impromptu question. And it's
Yeah.
just, it just came to me now. Do you think the more people in the space industry should take up yoga?
I I think that more people in the world. I think yoga's
Hmm.
good. Whether you're going and doing yoga at a gym that is like a fitness class, or you're doing like deep meditation, or I mean, any form of yoga is only going to
Yeah.
help. But I definitely someday would love to see more marriage between yoga and space, and how do we bring yoga to space,
Yeah.
because we got to retain the human when we're getting
Yeah.
out there,
Totally.
like how do you stay connected here to this body while we're disconnecting from the planet that brought
Yeah.
us.
Well, I
Good.
bet you that there will be yoga classes offered on some of the commercial space stations going up into low Earth orbit next 10 years. But I'll keep tabs on that, and I'll let you know. Last question.
I hope to be part of that
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah. They should
Yeah.
consult you. But last question. Do you have any concerns about aliens freeloading on your Wi-Fi?
This is one of our major things we're looking at with cyber. Um,
I was like, oh, wow.
realistically, I know. Much more, concerned about
Like
encryption and cyber
Earth-based.
for other
Yeah.
reasons.
Earth-based.
Now, that said, I think any aliens that are really looking to be sending signals across our solar system probably have technology that we want to freeload off
Yeah.
of. like they probably got the quantum thing dialed, and we're working on it, as humans.
Yeah.
But I think we're probably going to be trying to piggyback off them if we can figure
Right.
that out.
Right. That's a point. That's
Great
a point
question.
that I make to a lot of my non-space friends. Like, if they got here and they're here, like it's probably us that's trailing in the technology. Well, Kelly, this this has been
Yeah.
a great conversation, a lot of food for thought, and looking forward to reconnecting in 2024, 2025 to see how the initial, initial mission goes. But thanks so much for the time. That'll do it for today.
Ryan, thank you so much for everything you're doing with this podcast, with your writing, with Payload Space. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Alrighty, y'all. That will do it for Pathfinder 0015. Thanks to Kelly for being a great guest and for the fun combo. Thanks to all of you for tuning in, and thanks to Spider Oak for helping us keep the lights on here at Payload. Pathfinder is brought to you by Payload, a modern space media brand, and you can subscribe to our daily industry-leading newsletter at payloodspace.com. If you like what you've heard today, leave us a rating and review on your favorite pod player. It will really help move the needle for us. And if you're new around these parts, check out our ever-growing backlog. I'm looking forward to recording Pathfinder eventually, hopefully soon, with someone who on the other end is in space using Aquarian's in-space Wi-Fi. But for today's purposes, terrestrial internet will do. Thanks again for tuning in. I'm Ryan Duffy signing off, and I'll see you back here next week on Tuesday. And not with Norovirus.